Mrs. Burnett.
Present. We'll have Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll take a moment of silence. Thank you. And at this time, is there board member statements? Yes, ma'am.
I was able to attend Water Day at Estrella Vista this past month, and I want to give a huge round of applause to One Estrella Vista for hosting all the fourth graders in the entire district and running it through. Those students came off the bus. They knew exactly where they were going to go. They worked. Every school did amazing. It was great to see the city of Avondale there. U of A was there teaching all the kids about water conservation. And I was just really impressed in how quickly and efficiently the kids knew exactly where to go. They did their job. They moved to the next rotation. And it seemed like there was just a new bus about every hour coming, dropping off more kids, and another bus leaving. And you could still see all the other kids in Estrella Vista were working. They weren't disrupting anything. So a huge shout out to all of our fourth grade teachers. And it was just amazing. I was so happy to be there.
Thank you. Anything else? No? All right, thank you.
Wait, no, Kathy.
Oh, yes.
I had the opportunity to attend Fine Arts' District Honors Banquet. I can't remember, that was the right day after the board meeting. I don't know why I thought it was before. I also did want to wish everyone a happy National Women's History Month. I'm wearing a shirt, I don't know if anyone can see it, says women belong in all places where decisions are being made. And I also just wanted to thank my colleagues for everything that they do.
Thank you. Anything else? I can't remember what I did, so I'm pretty sure I did something though, but it's one of those days, so there we go. All right, with that, Dr. Freeman, I'll turn it over to you for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. I feel now like I should be thanking some women too, but it wasn't in my prepared remarks. You guys, do you know this, that 90% of all healthcare decisions in America are made by women, even though you're only half the population? Lucky for us. Welcome back from spring break. I hope everybody had an opportunity to rest and recharge, and students are ready to take full advantage of their academic, civic, and experiential learning opportunities in the fourth quarter. Finish the year strong with all of the assessment and everything we have going on. We had an exceptional digital learning day last month, and last quarter. And this is an ongoing initiative led by the Alliance for Excellence in Education to engage students and empower educators through effective use of digital tools. This day is also a celebration to thank our community partners and our voters for supporting our capital override. The event kicked off with a welcome reception, introductions, and student demonstrations from our Littleton Online and Fine Arts Academies. We were excited to welcome Governor Katie Hobbs, who took a few minutes to address the audience and got a picture with the kids. She was just she was just so nice to have here and so appreciative. Following the welcome, guests and staff were divided into 3 bus tour groups and visited 2 schools each. They heard, we heard a lot of positive feedback from partners, and one of our guests later said it was a wonderful, wonderful day. And so we'd like to thank Ms. Araceli Vasquez for coordinating the event, extending the invitation to the governor's office, as well as all the staff who supported the event. Thank you to Ms. Sausnick, Ms. Barnett, Mr. Cisneros, and Ms. Contreras who were there, and all of our special guests for attending, and the welcome and the tours. It meant a lot to our staff and to our students to have everybody there. At the beginning of the month, most of the schools in the U.S. celebrated the joys of reading, and ours was no exception during Read Across America Week, or Dr. Seuss's birthday. All of our schools had special activities I was happy to accept invitations to read at a couple of our campuses. And the Trace Rios Pumas, who were caught reading, received tickets to enter into a weekly drawing for Scholastic Book Fair gift card. 3 student winners were announced and celebrated every Friday. Young Pumas wrote about their favorite book and what they would tell their parents if the Cat in the Hat and Thing 1 and Thing 2 came over to their house. Quinton STEM Academy celebrated with Spirit Week, and students were able to dress up as a fairy tale character, comic book character, or someone from a biography, and they hosted a special guest readers throughout the week, including some amazing 4th and 6th grade students visiting other classrooms and reading to younger sharks. The Student Council at Littleton STEM planned several activities, including a literacy week with opportunities to dress as your favorite character, or genre and featuring guest readers from Valley of the Sun United Way. Firebird's Reading Buddies created mini books to share and placed them on the reading tree that was displayed in the Caffeinasium. At the Fine Arts Academy, they had a Dr. Seuss-inspired week on the last day. Students and staff dressed up as their favorite storybook character. The Scholastic Book Fair was held during the week in the library and was transformed into a jungle of books. The Falcons enjoyed exploring their new environment while hunting for books to read. At Estrella Vista STEM Academy, the Hawks participated in a fun Spirit Week and a bulletin board decorating contest to encourage reading. They also partnered with Valley Sun United Way to help welcome guest readers and promote the love of reading. At Country Place Leadership Academy, students earned raffle passes for trying something new, trying to answer tough questions, or just being positive. And classrooms invited a variety of readers. The student action team hosted Read Across America Night, which included book giveaways, prizes from local businesses, fun activities, snacks, and even some student performances. Then at the Collier Business Academy, students enjoyed buddy reading with other grade level partners, a book reading and popcorn party, and a book-inspired door decorating contest. Collier is hosting a cafe-themed community literacy night coming up this Thursday, and participants will choose to join grade level themed activities in their classrooms, and the community is warmly invited. Our Littleton Online Academy enjoyed a book character themed Spirit Week, and students enjoyed reading together with buddies in breakout rooms. I just have to add, on Digital Learning Day, the kids from the Online Academy really impressed people with the things that they were doing and talking about the learning that was going on there. We hosted the Littleton School District 2023 Honors Concert that Member Cisneros mentioned at Fine Arts Academy at the end of last month, and students from band programs across the district came together to showcase their hard work with a well-performed program. The Honors Band students had the opportunity to work with band directors from La Jolla Community High School and West Point High School, and they were both guest conductors at the concert, so the kids got a sneak peek into high school band. Our students did well at the Westside Impact Science and Engineering Fair again this year. 49 projects from 9 participating school districts were there. Littleton students received first place in grades 3-4 science competition with the bowling bottle project, and first place in K2 engineering with Make a Boat. Special thanks go to Jennifer Gerbic, who facilitated the fair, and it's a task that takes a lot of time and effort. She did a great job and received a lot of compliments from the other school districts. 4th grade students at Estrella Vista STEM Academy participated not just in Water Day, but NASCAR Fun Festival. I think it was on the last Friday before break, sponsored by the NASCAR Foundation and Phoenix Raceway. It was an exclusive event, invited only our 109 4th graders along with their teachers and chaperones. Students enjoyed racing themes events, and their heads were fitted for bike helmets, and they met and got signatures from NASCAR drivers. I don't know if you guys saw the pictures on Facebook. They were darling. Students and staff were inspired to learn that Estrella Vista STEM Academy would receive a $15,000 donation for their work at the school, and each of the students would be receiving their own bicycle. That's really big, wow. And so a special thanks to Phoenix Raceway and to NASCAR. The Office of English Language Acquisition Services at the Department of Ed conducted the EL program monitoring, doing site visits at 3 of our schools. 16 areas are monitored in the monitoring cycle, and all 16 of those had 0 findings. Of course, there's a few recommendations, but there was no action required. This is an exceptionally positive report by completing the cycle without findings, which rarely happens. The report was made more exceptional by the fact ADE insisted on doing the work the very same week we returned from winter break. So our staff had to work over the break to be ready. And I'd like to congratulate the team, and we really need to extend our thanks to the teachers and staff who were involved in helping to assure and maintain high fidelity to the expectations for our EL program. I'd also like to thank all the other sites and departments that worked alongside a curriculum instruction department to help assure that the language development growth of all of our students in Littleton is on track and progressing. Our Human Resources Department's been working hard to meet staffing challenges of our schools this year with an acute statewide and national teacher and staff shortage. A recent report cited teacher openings at 25% on average across Arizona, with the percent of teachers not fully certified climbing to 44%. This is Arizona's new differentiated staffing model that I've been talking to people about and filling positions with more teachers in training because there's too few highly skilled teachers who want those jobs. Littleton's shortage is only a fraction of those averages, so we're doing well compared to the state. But we've had some positions unfilled for most of the year. Next year, we're going to be looking at strategically differentiating position assignments and importing talent from around the globe. So families in our communities deserve having the best teachers possible in front of our students. Contracts for teachers and professional staff for next year have gone out. 77% of teachers committed to returning Littleton in time to earn the early signing incentive. That's 4% higher than the year before. The window for teachers to return their contracts closed yesterday at 4:30 p.m. with 83% of those contracts accepted. That's up 1% from a year ago. Estrella Vista seems to be getting mentioned a lot tonight. They led the school sites by returning 95% of their contracts. We also received another administrator contract this week, and later in the evening we'll be asking members to consider another ESSER incentive to recognize all of our employees who continue to return to service year after year in these challenging times. We've had a great third season for softball and boys soccer. There's 6 softball teams with 2 coaches and about 12 to 14 players. There's 6 boys soccer teams with 2 coaches, and they have per team, they have 15 or 16 players. You might remember our athletic coordinator provided you an update in a recent meeting and told you about Activate, the application process for registration, and we've had reports the process is much easier for our families. We also heard appreciation for the supply wagons that were purchased for each school sport team so they can transport their equipment. We wouldn't want to end up like Grand Canyon basketball players in Denver. And so job postings for this season, season 4 already started, and we anticipate high participation. In closing, I'd like to thank Carmen Gomez and our Quinton PTA for their donation of close to $800 to help pay for field trip transportation. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman, and it deserves repeating. I know I speak on behalf of the board. We want to thank everyone that was involved in the EL program monitoring. It's not easy to do that, and it's not easy to ever get anything in any of those auditing things. So the fact that we just had a few recommendations speaks
volumes. It's a tough thing to get. So definitely, please let everyone know, all of your staff, it is greatly appreciated, and I do think we understand how hard that is. So congratulations. And I just shout out to Estrella Vista, 95% of your contracts, you must be doing something fantastic, so appreciate it as well. So with that, we're gonna turn it over to Ms. Vandewater to talk about the program showcase.
President Reyes, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, I am honored to present to you our program showcase for this evening. Tonight, Mrs. Kathy Sylvester, principal of Fine Arts Academy, will showcase their signature school's focus through highlighting the school's mission, vision, community partnerships, arts integration learning initiatives, and several exciting performing and visual arts experiences for our students and families. Additionally, Fine Arts will showcase their Kids at Hope Student of the Month, 8th grader Elijah Lopez, and recognize a dedicated volunteer, Joy Gelvin. We are pleased to welcome Mrs. Kathy Sylvester.
Good evening, President Reyes, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, executive team, and members of the Littleton community. My name is Kathy Sylvester, and I am the principal of the Fine Arts Academy. Thank you for this opportunity to showcase our wonderful school. At the Fine Arts Academy, our mission is to provide rigorous and relevant learning experiences that engage, empower, and inspire all students to reach their highest potential while expressing their unique artistic talents. Our vision is to empower all students to explore their passions while engaging in academic and artistic expression to maximize their potential in becoming lifelong learners. Arts integration is a focus at the Fine Arts Academy. Our teachers receive professional development on how to incorporate different forms of the arts into their lessons, tapping into their students' creative side. When this happens, our students are able to make deeper connections with the standard curriculum as they use their imagination to express themselves. As shown here, the first picture is of students using the 3 little pigs to interview characters from the story. The next picture is of students using their presentation skills, and the last is of students using elements of voice expression to write a haiku poem. Another example is Ms. Stewart's 8th grade adaptation science project. Using the properties of 3D visual arts, her students created their own birds or plants in an arts integration project demonstrating their understanding of how genetic variations occur in offspring through the inheritance of traits or mutations, changing the way an organism adapts to a specific environment. After Mrs. Stewart's students completed their adaptation creations, they gave a short presentation of their plant or bird, furthering incorporating the arts by using their presentation skills to explain their models, demonstrating their understanding of how natural selection may lead to increases or decreases of specific traits in populations over time. According to one 8th grade student, his experience with the project was that he needed to create his bird with a functioning beak so it could eat, and that it also needed to remind him of his grandma's bird that was always chirping and very colorful. At the Fine Arts Academy, our community partnerships include Artsonia, the Kennedy Center, Sounds Academy, the UBU Project, WestMech, and West Valley Arts Council. Sounds Academy is a nonprofit music organization that provides fine arts students the opportunity to learn how to play string instruments and guitar. Artsonia is an online gallery for student art portfolios. Here is 4th grade Falcon Melanie, who won Artist of the Week for the week of February 11th. The UBU Project is a performing arts outreach organization that empowers students through sonnet and music. And finally, through the West Valley Arts Council, Cheryl Mertz and her Artful Teaching provides our teachers professional development on arts integration strategies such as tableau, storytelling, and character interviews. At the Fine Arts Academy, our students have an opportunity to be involved in ballet folklorico and dance. This year, our ballet folklorico students performed in a Dios de los Muertos celebration at the Goodyear Farms Historic District. And our dance students performed in a charity event in Peoria and as cheerleaders at a Phoenix Suns game. For our musically talented students, we offer band, mariachi, strings, and guitar. Artistic students participate in our early morning art club. And those students with a dramatic flair can showcase their talents by acting in a play or working behind the scenes and actually on the scenes in stagecraft. This year's performance of The Mysterious Case of the Mysterious Case was a smash hit. We also have several levels of choir at the Fine Arts Academy for students to sing and show off their vocal abilities. Recently, our advanced choir performed the national anthem at a Phoenix Suns home game. At the Fine Arts Academy, we like to say, it's a great day to be a Falcon, every day.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Oh, sorry.
Video. Looks like you're having a lot of fun and learning, so that's the key, right?
Thank you.
Thanks.
We are going to recognize a kid at Hope and a volunteer as well.
Thank you.
Sorry. Our kids at Hope is Elijah Lopez. Is it? Oh, sorry. Do I do Joy first? I apologize.
Hi, I'm Elijah. I'm Kid at Hope for respecting other people and focusing on my work and helping others who may need help. I want to thank my aces, who are my mom and dad and friends. They push me to do my best and work hard, and I really like need that, and I thank them for that. And I want to thank Fine Arts for giving me Kid at Hope.
You didn't think we were going to let you get away sitting in the back, did you? We saw you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Good job. Well, I thought you guys looked so great. He's the one who leads the picture, not us. And we'll, do you want to sit it or by himself? You want to take one first? You can take one by himself. Stephanie, would you take one by himself? Yeah. Oh, you want us all? It doesn't matter. He can have one by himself.
I won't be able to make it.
I didn't know anything about it. What is it? I didn't hear anything about it.
Hi, Joy Galvin is Fine Arts Academy Volunteer of the Month. Joy has been our volunteer for many years. She is always available. She helps out in the morning with our students. She helps with the book fair. She helps with PTSA. She has helped out doing lunch duty, cafeteria duty. She comes every time we have a collection for Dress Down Day. We are so lucky and so appreciative to have Joy Galvin as the Fine Arts Academy Volunteer of the Month.
Are you guys going? Are y'all going?
I'm going. They posted on their social media, so it's one thing. Because before we ended up going.
I'll go. Are we supposed to go?
Yeah, it's a community event, just like in Avondale.
I'll probably stop by.
Does that conclude the vote? Thank you. My understanding is there is no call to the public, is that correct? All right, so we will move on to item 9, the consent agenda. Is there any items the board wishes to have pulled from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve or disapprove the agenda.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Hearing a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, the motion will pass. Next, item 10. At this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. French.
Yeah, it's a big drink of water. Thank you, President Reyes, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, and Littleton community. This evening, I'd like to share information about the FY 21-22 annual financial audit. ARS 15914 requires any governing board of a school district that has adopted an expenditure budget of $2 million or more for the Maintenance and Operation Fund shall contract for an annual financial statement audit. In addition, any entity that exceeds $750,000 or more in federal assistance, which we did, must be reviewed by a single audit as dictated by OMB Circular A-133. In the spring of 2021, the Arizona legislature passed legislation that required the governing board publicly accept these audits through a roll call vote. The school district must also upload these files to the Arizona Department of Education and provide them to the county superintendent's office. Both the financial statement audit and the single audit are performed each year by an independent audit firm. We use the firm Heinfeld Meach and Company. The audits we are reviewing tonight are for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. We have 3 parts to review of this audit: the annual comprehensive financial report, also known as the ACFR, the single audit, and the USFR compliance review. This annual comprehensive financial report is for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. The ACFR is a set of financial statements that comprise the financial report of the district and complies with the accounting requirements published by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. The most descriptive portion of the ACFR are on pages 19 to 28, and this is the management's discussion and analysis, also called the MD&A. These documents should be attached to the item, so you're welcome to open them up and follow along with me, or look at them at your convenience. The MD&A is a narrative overview of the financial activities of the district for fiscal year 2021 and 22. This section reviews the financial highlights of the year. Following that, on pages 32 to 64 are the actual financial statements and the narrative notes to those financial statements. And then beginning on page 127 is the statistical section where financial trends, revenue, and debt capacity can be evaluated, as well as demographic and economic information that report on the environment of our district to help make comparisons with other school districts. The ACFR is also the document that the district uses and submits to be considered for financial reporting awards. For the past 15 consecutive years, Littleton Elementary School District has received both the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, as awarded by the International ASBO Association, and the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, as awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association. As quoted by a letter of notice from the GFOA, the Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. Turning to the single audit reporting package, I recommend reviewing page 9. This is where you'll find a summary of the type of report issued, any non-compliance or weakness revealed, as well as specific federal funds reviewed. For both financial statements and federal awards, the district was found to have no significant deficiencies identified and no material weaknesses regarding compliance.
We are just notifying you that there's nothing attached to our documents to reference the audit itself. We just have the slide presentation.
I apologize for that. I'll make sure that you get copies of these.
Thank you.
Makes it hard for you to follow along, doesn't it?
Yeah. Referencing page 9, section 7, I'm like, okay.
Okay, so in addition, there were no instances of material noncompliance identified. The type of auditor's reports is listed as unmodified. An auditor's issues an unmodified opinion when the financial statements give a true and fair view and the organization has operated in accordance with all applicable financial reporting requirements. As you will also see later on this page is where Littleton Elementary School District was identified as a low-risk auditee. The specific federal fund that was reviewed for this fiscal year was Title I. The last report that we will review this evening is the USFR compliance questionnaire to assist the Office of the Auditor General in determining whether a district has attained an acceptable degree of compliance with the requirements of the USFR. The audit firm must complete the USFR compliance questionnaire. Once the USFR questionnaire is completed, it reveals any areas of deficiency. As indicated just a moment ago, the audit states that there were no material noncompliance items identified. Therefore, the number of deficiencies for this particular audit was minuscule in degree and are still well below the average for the district as well as statewide Heinfield and Meach audited districts. The USFR compliance questionnaire is a 30-page document of 18 sections with a total of 170 questions and are written so that a positive response is desired. Through the completion of the USFR questionnaire, the audit firm identified 2 sections with an overall total of 5 notes for this fiscal year. These items are identified as a no to the questionnaire. USFR deficiencies, as noted on the last slide, Littleton was given 5 notes from 170 questions. This slide you're looking at now shows the average school district annual deficiencies recorded for Heinfield and Meach clients. As you can see, in comparison to previous years, Littleton continues to be well below average findings for districts statewide, whose in 2021 average was 14 deficiencies. I'd really like to acknowledge all the staff that was part of this audit and involved in the audit on an annual basis. It's not only staff from the business office, but also staff from the IT, food service, the Welcome Center, and HR that have a huge role in Littleton's audit success. Sorry. I will get copies of the reports discussed here tonight, and attach them to the item. Dr. Freeman, I need to get those now so we can vote on those, or? So Dr. Freeman, it's a roll call vote. It's not, they're not approving the audit. They're accepting roll call vote the results. But I'd be happy to get them attached as, sure.
Yeah.
If it's all right with you, I mean, we can come back and consider it before we adjourn.
And again, tell me, if we're not approving it, what are we taking a roll call on?
The legislature back in 2021 made this a rule that school boards had to roll call vote so that they are ensuring that the management team is disclosing the information that was done in the audit.
Oh, okay, so we do need to see it, I think.
Well, we've technically reviewed it, but you haven't had an
Right.
individual
To review it, right.
And I think the idea was it wasn't buried in the consent
Okay.
agenda or anything like that.
That's fine, we
so-
can try and get them while we're here and come back to it, is that okay?
I mean, yeah, the files are all in an electronic folder somewhere, so we just
Okay.
need to retrieve it and attach it.
Okay. So at this point, we'll just move item 10 further down the agenda.
I think it's a point of privilege for the president if we can
Yeah.
reconsider it for action before we adjourn.
I think that's acceptable, so we will.
Appreciate that.
We will move forward. It looks like, sir, you're moving on to number 11, the
Yes.
recognition.
Madam President, members of the governing board, this item is has to do with the ESSER funds that we are provided from the federal government, as well as asking the governing board to approve an ESSER retention amount for staff for next fiscal year. The district has provided an ESSER retention amount to staff for the last 2 years. In recap, FY22, the district provided a $1,000 retention stipend as well as a 1.25% of the employee's salary. And this fiscal year, the district provided a $700 retention stipend and a $450 contract signing incentive. Administration would like to continue providing funds to staff through the ESSER allocation. Administration has determined the district is able to pay a retention stipend to returning employees of $2,000 to be split into 2 payments, one in August and one in February of next fiscal year, from the amount received from the ESSER 3 grant. The retention stipend is estimated to cost the district approximately $1.2 million. ESSER funds are scheduled to expire on September 30th of 2024, and any funds left unspent would be required to be returned to the federal government. It is the district's intention to pay a retention stipend for FY 23-24 into 2 payments and determine a possible retention amount to be paid again in August of 24. before funds expire. This would allow administration to review and revise the ESSER plan and ensure all funds are expended in their entirety prior to expiration. Currently, the district has approximately $2 million available to be spent on retention over the next 2 fiscal years. So, Madam President, this is an action item. We are asking the board to approve the retention stipend of $2,000 to all returning staff based on their FTE.
Okay, is there questions?
I just had a question. How much SR funds do we have left to spend? Was it 2 million just for the teachers?
Madam President, Member Cisneros, it is $2 million that is currently unallocated or unencumbered for other projects.
Thank you.
Yes? No? Amy? So I just wanted to clarify, it's 2,000 for all returning staff regardless of position? Or wage. Okay, that's what. Yes, that's my understanding. It would be a higher percent if I'm a lower income wage earner. Okay, that's good. Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'll hear a motion.
I move that the governing board approve the district to pay a one-time ESSER retention stipend of $2,000 to all returning staff based on staff FTE.
I second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion will pass. Thank you. Mr. French, it's your lucky day. You're up next again.
Thank you.
Item
Appreciate
12.
that, Madam President. Madam President, in January, the governor released her budget, which included the following items. It repealed the ESA expansion. It added 3% base level increase. It also added capital inflation, which was going to be $10.9 million of additional assistance. Added $332 million for building renewal grants statewide, $127 million for schools already under construction, and $13 million to provide free and reduced lunches at school in low-income areas. However, the budget was quickly dismissed by the legislature, and a continuation budget was proposed and sent to the governor's office. This budget did not include any of the above-mentioned items and only provided school districts with a 2% increase to the base support level, which is required by law. This budget was vetoed by the governor, which has set up a quote-unquote showdown at the Capitol. This is not expected to be a quick process, and the legislative session will likely go until June 30th. With this in mind, the administration is determining the best course of action for providing raises to staff next year without knowing what the legislative appropriation will be. It is important to keep the increased cost of benefits, utilities, inflation, and for materials and supplies, as well as the raises, to a level that would be supported by the maintenance and operations budget. Administration is discussing ways of passing the majority of the inflationary increase onto employees and what that would mean for current programs in the district. Over the course of the next couple of months, administration will be developing scenarios, including a possible tiered raise system to provide staff with the amount based on the known 2% and a percentage of anything above, just like we did last fiscal year. If you remember last year, we were fairly certain that the legislature was going to give us a 2%, and then we asked the governing board to provide raises above and beyond that based on what they were providing to us. We would like to bring that back to the board in the coming months once we know more about how the legislative process is unfolding. This is just a discussion item, and we wanted to give the board an update on what we were thinking about doing with raises and provide you the ability to ask any questions that you have about the process, about the budget, or raises for next fiscal year.
Since this is discussion, is there any questions or anything else you'd like provided on this, since we're going to be bringing it back? Hearing none? Yeah.
Maybe, Madam President, members of the board, maybe if I can help stimulate the thinking a little bit. So, inflation in, I think, the Phoenix area is said to be down now under 7%, closer to 6%. So, what you can see is a 2% increase. Once again, would be 3 years in a row where the percent increase to the base funding level is below the percentage of inflation. So that 2%, in Mr. French's paragraph, you can see that employee benefits is up way more than 2%. Inflationary costs are up more than 2%. And, all people need to do is look at the price of eggs, right? So I think SRP and APS are both putting in for rate increases. So 2% is not a good number for us, because what happens is all the other costs are eating into it significantly. If the governor's budget adds 3%, we would probably be able to give more than a 3% increase. Last year, we put in a 75% trigger. The increase in employee-related expenses, which is our share of benefits for matching ASRS and FICA and all of those things, ate up all but a few percent of that, and inflation ate up the rest. So we estimated that pretty well. In this case, we don't know that we could put together a 75% trigger on in addition to the base. Obviously, if there was addition to the district additional assistance or some other funds, that would take a lot of pressure off the M&O fund. So part of the reason we're bringing this forward is right now we're not thinking that even a simple trigger is going to have enough predictive effort for us to assure that whatever we put into the salary schedule for compensation, we'll be able to maintain over time, over future years. So in the past, when the state was cutting funding, we did a combination of base percent raises and one-time money and those kind of things. And so we certainly don't have this figured out, but part of the reason to have this item on the agenda today is if you have any thoughts, concerns, or wishes in a more perfect world, to share those with the management team, and we can try to put together some scenarios, scenario 1, 2, 3, ABC or something like that, to give you a little meat to debate at a future meeting. We can try to come up with them on our own, but coming up with something that's going to be objectionable to the board and putting staff time and effort into that kind of thing, we don't really want to do. So not that people have solidly formed ideas or anything, but it would be helpful to the management team if people have thoughts about it, to share it here. And then I would imagine it'll take more than one meeting to narrow in on what's going to work. And of course, it'd be great if the legislature could start compromising and working together to help us plan, but we're not really counting on that this spring.
Okay, so we'll open it up. Is there, or if you need more time, some of these are just, you got to sit and think about it, right? So I'll open it up. I just have two things if I can. One is I would ask that Mr. French bring back to the board, I'm going to use the word surplus because I don't know what else to use, but I need to understand where the budget is, right? I mean, I see it and I know it, but
Carry forward.
yes, I need to know what that looks like, because that sometimes dictates, where it's one-time monies, right? Maybe we can give you a one-time money, and that's sustainable, right? Because the other concern is being sustainable. We're a pretty fiscal conservative district, and it served us well in tough times. I'm not sure everyone agrees or disagrees, but we've had some really tough years, and we didn't give the raises we wanted, but we were able to weather and keep what we had, and sometimes that's what it boils down to. So if you could bring back and let us know what the carry forward will be, and then what one-time monies could we give, and what that would look like, I think for me that would be helpful. And then if you propose something other than one-time money, say I don't know what you call it, cost of living, whatever you're talking about in terms of what Dr. Freeman's, you know, just, to me, it's cost of living, right? Whatever that looks like. That, and then, is that sustainable, right? Because that's my, but can we sustain that in really tough times? So that's stuff I think we all would like to see. I don't know if there's anything else you want to see.
I would kind of repeat exactly what Kathy said. I am always in support of giving our staff, all of our staff, as much as we can in compensation while staying and, you know, financially sound and providing everything we need for our students. And if that has to be a one-time payout instead of increasing their salaries because we don't know if we can sustain in their salaries, I'm okay with that as long as we're giving them as much as we can.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. The other thing is, do you know when you'll bring it back? Because honestly, if I'm a teacher, I want to know what that is. The sooner the better, because sometimes where we like to know it or say it, it makes decisions in where people go and what they do. So do
Yes.
you have an idea, like, when that will come back?
Madam President, that's why we wanted to start this discussion
Okay.
tonight. The plan is, and I think it's on the next board meeting
Oh,
to
perfect.
discuss again. So I appreciate the feedback, and we'll go back and build the scenarios and bring back some more information for next time.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, yes, sir.
So I know we're going to bring it back. How long do our staff members have for their contracts? Will their contracts, like, do they have to turn them in before our next board meeting, or will it be after?
Madam President, members, Cisneros, I believe we broke up contracts into multiple groups. I can have Dr. Haid answer that question for you if you like.
Yes, the contracts are broken into two groups, depending on the amount of time that the employees were mandated by statute to sign the contracts. So as Dr. Freeman reported this evening, we have those final numbers in from teachers. I imagine what President Reyes is getting at is teachers do want to know, but we do have a longstanding history here of honoring our word and giving employees all of the compensation that is available to us. And so with that being said, all of the teachers who have contracts issued, they were due yesterday. Sometimes, based on this information or the hope that something will come, a few will ask for their resignations to be rescinded, but not a lot. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Madam President, Mr. and members of the board, so last year, you might remember, we didn't know what the trigger amount was going to be till the year was over. And so the way that works operationally is an addendum to the contract. I think it was last month in February, we reviewed contract language with the board. So what's happened is, because the legislature continues to do this, instead of finishing in 100 days, or, you know, we know when they're going to sine die, and then we can hurry up and crunch some numbers and bring them to you in May. There used to actually be a teacher contract window in statute that we all had to follow. They got rid of that because it got in the way of them deciding what the budget. So it used to be contracts had to be back for teachers by May 15th. So we needed to know the budget by May 15th. And so since they didn't do the budget, they got rid of the teacher contract window. Now, when we did contracts, Dr. Haid brought to you one of the things that we do all the time is we look at ESSER incentives from other districts, when contracts are going out from other districts, all of those kind of things. The real market that we compete with regionally is other public school districts, not so much charters or private schools or those kind of things. So the contract has built into it the ability to amend the contract if there's a significant change in state funding. So 2% plus 3% would allow us to do contract addendums, and unfortunately people have kind of gotten used to it as a way of life because the legislature does this all of the time. So the contract that went out to teachers that they signed in return guarantees their wage won't go down, and that what additional monies we get, the board will work to apply that to their wage. And so it really works out to be a multi-step process. So you have a contract with provisions in the language for the board to do an addendum to increase the amount, and then the addendum goes out, and all of that requires the legislature to give us a known number. In the meantime, it goes into effect in steps like that, a progression. So the same thing's true for the other contracts. And I think the last thing to go out is wage statements, and those will be the same thing. Is that rate can be amended if there's an increase possible to the hourly classified support staff as well.
Just one more thing I thought of when you present the information. Can you, if you know, also tell us what surrounding districts are considering? Because that's our competition. I mean, not always, but it is. So if we kind of know if they're thinking of giving 2 or 3 or 4, it helps us kind of know where we need to be, you know. We definitely don't want to be on the low end. I'm not sure we can afford the high end, but we want to be right in the middle of the pack. So surrounding districts. And then when you look at one-time monies, so if you look at one-time monies, because we know if we can afford it, that's good, right? And then if we could give, I'm going to use the word merit, whatever you want to call it, people that, you know. Longevity. Okay, longevity, if that's what you call it. So longevity, could we give a one-time monies and still be sustainable by giving it maybe a 1% or 2%, but that would be sustainable, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a combination of the two, because that way, you know, if we say we're going to give you a 1%, but we're going to give you X as one time, it is all income, however you look at it. So if you could bring those back, those would be good things for us to review.
Madam President, I'll definitely bring those back. We have been trying to gather surrounding
hard.
district information, and it's kind of all over the board. We have a couple that, you know, are saying, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We have a couple of districts that received much more ESSER money than we did based on their, you know, their Title I population.
Right.
And we've heard, you know, $10,000. And, you know, so that's not something that the district would be able to do based on.
Well, try to match us up to our population.
Right.
I mean, that would be the only fair way, right? We
Right.
can't compete with some, but whatever looks equal to us would be great.
I think more people will be telling as time goes on. Right now,
Right.
people are
Keeping that quiet because they want to hang on to their teachers. I get that. All right, thank you. Anything else from the board? No? All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yep. Right, we'll move on to, we're going to get rid of you, sir. Are you sad, Mr. French, we're leaving you? So we're going on to Dr. Haid.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I get my first item to be exciting. So there's no action required for this, but I would like to announce the new principal for Lakin Prep. Dr. Nicole Durazo requested to open the new school, and the superintendent has approved this request. So Dr. Nicole Durazo will move from the principal, highly successful principal, as you've heard about this evening, at Estrella Vista STEM Academy to be considered for the principalship at the Lakin Prep Academy. That you might see the slide up here, just a few things before we welcome her up to speak about her own accomplishments. She has been a servant leader with over 25 years of experience, and she's been with us on the Estrella Vista campus since 2019. She's won several awards, including we're currently anxiously awaiting if she wins the Maricopa County Exemplary Principal Finalist. She's a finalist if she wins the award like Dr. Cagle did last year. She was a Rodell Aspiring Principal. She's won the Excellence in Education recipient, and she won the Leadership Award from Argosy University when she completed her doctorate. And so we're excited to put a new leader's face with Lakin Prep, and we would like to invite Dr. Durazo up to say a few words.
Governing Board President Reyes, members of the board, Dr. Freeman, and Littleton community. I am honored to be selected as the principal of Lakin Prep Academy. It is a unique and special experience to open a new school, and one that I will not take lightly. I will be relentless in my pursuit to build a safe, positive school community built on strong relationships with staff, students, and most importantly, families. I look forward to building our signature school program of International Baccalaureate, IB, that is an accelerated learning model focused on 10 key components of a successful learner: inquirers, knowledgeable, thinkers, communicators, principled, open-minded, caring, risk-takers, balanced, and reflective. All traits that I believe in and practice every day. I'm also excited to partner with the Spanish Embassy for our dual language immersion program. Muy bien. To the future staff, students, and families of Lakin Prep. I am beyond excited to work collaboratively with all of you as we build an amazing learning community together, focused on student achievement. Parents, I value your voice in decision-making and will solicit your input and feedback. I look forward to meeting all of you as we begin the planning process. Thank you for this opportunity. Let's go, Lakin.
Well, thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm sure Estrella Vista is going to be very sad, and they will miss your strength. So we know you'll carry that strength to Lincoln, and we look forward to that venture. I understand you have a family or multiple family members.
They
Well, come on up.
surprised me.
Come on up. It's fine. Come on up. We're gonna applaud you too, because you won't be seeing much of her. We're just letting you know that.
They're used to that. This is my husband, Andy, and my oldest son, Tanner.
Very nice to meet you, and thank you for sharing her with our school. We appreciate it. So congratulations.
Quick candid photo.
Picture.
Stage photo.
Yeah, there you go. We know that was informational only. So we will now move to number 14, which is yours as well, Dr. Haid.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight's item, which piggybacks on to Mr. French's item of compensation, is broken into 4 parts: salary schedules, stipend and addenda, incentives, and then job descriptions, duties, and grades. So the first item I'd like to look at this evening is the salary schedule, which is Part A. And I'm going to ask Mr. Barrel to bring up the certified salaries, the certified placement schedule. See, I've already gotten my words changing. So the work that's being brought to you this evening is based on feedback from internal and external stakeholders and represents an effort to be better communicators in a highly competitive educational market. This evening I have 2 placement schedules to share. The first one is the certified placement one. We're attempting to shift the process for salary and wage placement from an inward to an outward-facing one. We're not changing the practice of how we establish a wage for an employee, but rather allowing prospective employees to estimate for themselves what their salary or wage might be. While the old system of the ranges for positions solved our issue of having a traditional lockstep salary schedule where raises were established percentages over time as you stayed with the district, we moved to one that had a minimum and a maximum. But that often created different problems for us, including confusion about placement of new hires and compression within the staff. So I'd like to walk through the schedule with you to show how someone from the outside might calculate it. But first, I'd like to say that this new placement schedule accomplishes 4 things as the human resources staff worked through this. This is friendly to a prospective employee. It clearly outlines the criteria that we've always used to determine salary placement. It provides an avenue to continue our differentiated staffing and compensation due to our use of teachers in the pipeline rather than fully certified ones. And most importantly, it honors current employees with similar years of experience in education, which dispels the rumor that if you leave and come back to the district, you get paid more. The Human Resources Department ran several test cases using candidates in the queue. We actually have new teachers to hire, and candidates that have been hired over the years. And with each case, the salary or wage amount closely matched our current practice. One change in the structure of the schedule is the inclusion of classroom site fund monies in the schedule. Most other districts include the amount in their schedule, which creates a misconception that Littleton pays much less than the competition. So over the years, we've considered the fact that we separate the classroom site fund money outside of the base pay amount to be more transparent if those monies were not going to continue through. It was a voter approved and it's changed a little bit over the years. But we're actually being penalized now because people want to look at something and see it and not do a lot of adding, even though there's some addition and math problems here. So we're going to test your knowledge a little bit. This placement schedule includes $6,600 from the classroom site fund, which would be an increase from the $5,420 that's currently in the biweekly checks of certified staff. Mr. French and I worked together to look at carry forward and the amount allocated from the JLBC, which comes out the 1st of March, and are comfortable saying that we can maintain this base increase of $6,600. As you can see, the schedule takes into account educational attainment, years of experience, and certifications, which are becoming more and more important. It also highlights additional compensation opportunities based on hard-to-fill assignments and specialty certificates that are in high need due to requirements by the state or scarcity of candidates. A good example of this is that several years ago, the state required all certificated people to have an SEI endorsement on their certificate, which our EL learners are supposed to have a teacher with this endorsement. They removed that requirement, but still kept of the certificate, but still kept the requirement for us to have a teacher with that endorsement on their certificate to be in compliance. So this is just one of the areas that we needed to address. So I'd like to go over the bottom, I'll go from the beginning to the end. The top to the bottom, sorry, Jim. So we have cell points with base salaries. And so to determine placement, you look at education and you see where you're lined up. If you have a master's plus 30, you start out on step 11, okay? Then you add experience. If you have no experience, you don't get to add anything. If you have 1 to 15 years of experience, you get 1 point per year. So if I had 15 years, I'd add 15 and 11, and I'd get 26. Hoping my math is correct. Then for each additional endorsement or approved area, and this is just on placement, so you only get this one time, you add a point. So if you have 26 and you have an SEI endorsement, then you would go to line 27, and that's a contract amount of $60,677. Then we have an area, and this is also a stipend piece, but these are the hard to fill and the specialty certificates that are highly marketable, so we added them at the bottom here for people. If this is the only sheet they find, it gives them a good idea as to where they would be placed. So the hard to fill assignments are the specialty certificates. Self-contained special ed, we are looking to increase that from 3,000 to 3,500. We are continually finding that we are having to go to contracted services to get our certified special ed teachers, and the $500 is minimal compared to the contract services amount, and we're looking to see if our IDEA grant can cover this. But the IDEA grant does cover the offset between the contracted, some of the offset between the contracted service amount and what we would pay our own teacher. The same goes for the LD resource room. That has gone up to $2,800 to match the gifted classroom, which is $2,800. In a prior schedule, we had that divided into $2,000 for the classroom and $800 for the certificate, but that would be the same. We added $1,000, so if you serve in a reading interventionist role, you would get a stipend of $1,000. We were short one interventionist all year this year. Middle grades are very difficult to find, always have been. In the past, we have paid an additional stipend of $1,000. That's not changed to math or science. But this year, we've added in that if you teach in grades 6, 7, or 8, and you are appropriately certified, you will get $1,000 for doing that. If you teach math or science in those grades, you get the other $1,000. So it's anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. We, excuse me, we have always had a stipend to try to attract registered nurses to serve in our health offices. We have increasingly had difficulty finding these, so this is listed as RN or BSN, which carries a license associated with that, would receive $5,000 on top of the base amount. A behavior certified analyst is $2,000. That hasn't changed. National certification, which there are several national certifications that we have recognized, that hasn't changed at $4,800. There are 3 certificates at the bottom. Early childhood, pre-K to 3 for your approved area, you'll get an extra $800. That was also a requirement that the state put on us at one time, but has taken it away, but it's still a really good idea for that foundations of early childhood to be attached to the teacher. Talked a little bit about the SCI endorsement. There are 3 certificate approved areas that suffice to be able to teach an EL student. That's a bilingual, an ESL, or an SCI endorsement. We're continually seeing people not have those on their certificates, so we've had bilingual on, but we added back in ESL or SCI for those purposes. And the last is a reading endorsement. All of our interventionists must have one, but there are other classroom teachers that have them, and they're helpful as we are tackling reading and math continually. So that is the overview. I would love to hear some questions, Member Soshnik.
Okay, so I look at this and I just say, okay, if I were to come teach at Littleton, what would I get? Because that would help me visualize it.
Yep.
So here's my question. If I have 14 years or 16 years experience, I only go 13 points?
Member Soshnik, no, if you read it line by line, so years 1 through 15 is 1 point per year, but anything over 15, you get 2 for 1s.
Okay.
So at 16, you won't get a point, but at 17, you'd get 1 additional point.
Because it says 1 point per 2 years over 10.
Yes.
That's where I'm confused.
Yes. Oh, thank you. That's a mistake. It should be over 15.
Okay, that's where I was confused because I'm like, then I'm just going to tell you I have 15 years.
No. This is one of those where you look and look and look and people look, and it's, so thank you. And this is why it's information, and we will have that corrected. Thank you so much.
That makes sense. Any other questions? I have some, and I wrote mine, so let me just read them, okay?
Okay.
So when I get to, how many are in our district right now, or do you know, how many's in, and I'm gonna call cell points? That's, this whole thing to me, I can't imagine who's gonna master this and complete it, because it's a process, so I hope there's some automated system. I do like that it's transparent and fair, so everyone will know based on some logic where they're placed. I think that's very important, versus saying you're coming in, I'm gonna put you at midpoint. That's always a little iffy, right? So I like the transparency. How many of our teachers are at cell point 40?
President Reyes, excuse me, I have a little cough, so I am on the cough drops tonight, but I can actually bring that back to you. What we did, we probably did 20 test cases to see if an incoming person with the same level of experience and education would match someone that's currently on staff. I did not do a comparison to cell points. I just simply looked at the bottom dollar.
Right.
But I can look.
There are no cell points. I think that it's an important paradigm shift to make. This is a placement schedule.
Right.
So once you get placed, then if you give a 1% raise in
It's on top.
$500,
Yeah.
that's your new wage.
This is strictly placement.
This is strictly placement. So
Understand.
the test that they ran was, let's just say you've been here 11 years and you have a master's degree. If we were gonna hire you today with 11 years and a master's degree on this placement schedule, is that close to what you're making now? And the answer is yes. Is it gonna be exactly the same? Because it depends on if you got 1% one year, 5.5% the next year, and the sequence that you got those percents and all of that. So there's no after placement cell to match. But the test on this was, if we use this, would we be bringing people in at wildly different numbers than if they left and came back to, next year, that it would still be comparable. So that's the hard thing, is we were all used to having these salary schedules for years and years and years. There's not a cell to match, but there's a test that if we were gonna hire you today, would your wage go up or down because of this schedule? And I think it's not exact, but it's close.
I would just
Yes.
wonder if you bring, if I've been here 15 years, and let's say I'm on, cell point 32, okay? And just because, I would have to be placed somewhere. You're gonna place existing employees in this? Or am I not being placed in this as an existing employee?
No, President Reyes.
So this is only new
simply
coming in
upon
teachers?
hire.
Or new coming in
Yes,
staff?
and then whatever action the board takes, whatever percentage or amount that you vote to put on the base is then voted on. That action is then calculated upon the current contract salary amounts, and they're issued an amended contract on top of that. So there's not a min-max any longer. That was this placement schedule used to be inward facing. Only HR looked at that, even though we had the same rules. This is to go out, an outward facing piece, so that it would be more transparent.
Okay, I have a lot more, so I'm gonna go ahead and let Amy ask.
Okay.
So my next question would be, actually I have a few. Let's say I come to you with a contract and I have an endorsement that I don't want to use, it's just there, I have earned it, and I'm not planning to have students using that endorsement. Are we still giving them the point for that?
Member Soshnick, they get the point upon hire, just one time. So
Okay.
if you have special ed on your certificate,
Right.
you get a point upon hire, but you won't get paid the stipend, either the 3,500 or the
makes sense.
2,800.
Okay.
Right.
And then
It's
my
not
next
used.
question, because in my past district was they incorporated one of these as I was there. If I am a current employee and I feel like I might make more going on this, do we have a way for them to say, hey, can we relook at what I'm currently making and compare it to this?
So, Member Soshnick, there are lots of times that people, because the old way, people had a very difficult time. And the longer you're here, if you get the 1%, there were times you got a 0.5%. Then there was a differentiated rate. If you were here longer, you got this percent. So we will go through and review all of that. And of course, if it's wildly different, I can take that forward to the superintendent and we can bring that forward. But the door is always open for people to come in and review their placements.
Yeah, wage equity concerns come up all the time. Let's look at the history.
Yes, sir.
So this will be published on our website, and so when someone is looking to become a teacher here, do they sit down with our hiring staff and do they figure out their salary with them, or do they do this separately and then they come to you?
Member Seniceros, that's a really great question, because in the past that they would want to make appointments with us, and really the time it takes for them to fill out the application and do all the groundwork, they want to know if it's worth their while, right? And so that was one of the impetuses of us creating this placement schedule, so that if we're out recruiting, this is a one-pager we can go through that, they can see it, and they're like, you know what, I'm already making $84,000 at my district, I can't afford to come over to you. We're like, okay, thank you very much. You know, maybe if you retire and want to come back and this would be the place for you, or a great place to work. And then yes, it would be on our website. so that anyone could log on and see. And then also, as our principals have been instrumental in recruiting across years, this helps them persuade people when they meet a teacher at coffee or something like that, as you're standing in Starbucks or whatever. Hey, you know, we can, tell me about yourself, and they'll have a better idea of where that goes instead of having to call HR. In the past, people would text me, hey, I'm talking to this person. If they have this and this, you know, what will they get? And I could give them a range. So it's a tool. Yes.
So how did you come up with a $490 difference in each step? What made $490?
That's a great question as well. So what we did is we looked at a couple other districts, cell separation. Some you could not make any rhyme or reason out of. Some were $250. Some were $500. Some were, you know, a percent. So I took the current in-house placement schedule, which was indexed, and then I matched that closely because we wanted our processes to match, right? We didn't want everything to go, oh my gosh, this is so different. And now if I leave and come back, I'll be making something more. So our percentage pretty much matched to just about $490. And so we just took the base number and converted that, and then gave additional points in the determination of placement based on education that separates those columns, and that's how we came up with the math.
Okay. So what happens, I'm hired in, and I'm, you know, got all this endorsement, and I hire in at cell point 40, right? So now I'm hired in at 67, and I get that's a base. I'm clear on that. And I've got, and that, to get that, I had all this experience and my endorsements and all of that, right? But I'm a teacher who's been here, longevity, whatever that means to you. And I'm at 65. That's my concern. We have something like that currently in our organization, and it's a nightmare because you're rooting out sometimes longevity, not because you want to, you don't know how. So is there a method, if you have enough, once you look back and you see and you do all, that if I'm a longevity employee, is there a consideration to move, I don't know what you're on, a minimum, I know you said to do, but is there how do I ever make more money here if I'm at a highly qualified level, got all my endorsements? I don't ever want to be stuck. If you're moving a range by, if we give raises 3%, do you move that by 3 so that there's always continued growth?
Yes, so. Right,
Yeah,
so
okay.
President Reyes, right,
Okay.
this is placement, and so.
Placement on, I'm just concerned placement and
Right.
existing are
and
budding.
So in the past, I've had to come back several times and say, we had X amount of
Right.
people hit the top of the
I
range,
remember.
and we need to
Adjust.
expand that.
Okay,
What would happen is people would see the top of that range, this happened in all employee groups, and say, well, I want that.
right.
And we're like, that's not for you. We don't place anybody up to that point. And so this, you could possibly be hired in at $67,047, but an employee with your same level of experience and everything could be significantly higher because we won't need to be concerned about the max anymore because they're placed. All of our employees have been placed that you've approved in the past. So if you vote 0.5% or a 2% raise, we go back and apply that.
So you adjusted accordingly, just strictly on salary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, no, that's, I was just more curious about the 490. I find that interesting.
It was actually when the HR staff went through it, they go, this is so easy, like, good job, like, how did you get that? I'm like, it was sort of one of those work backwards method, draw a picture, use all the problem-solving skills, but all of our test cases worked, and we will continue to do more between now and the April meeting, just so you're aware.
Be interested to see it in motion. That's where you'll learn where it's really working and
Yes.
what flaws you need to clear out, right? But interesting. I like the transparency of it. I do like.
One of the things we see right now, because remember in the old schedule, every step was 2.5%. They were equal increments, right? Today, we don't know if we're getting 1% or 5% from the legislature. So let's just say that somebody got their master's degree, so now they're at the master's degree column, and we give 5%. So they move over a column and get a 5% raise. The next year, one of their friends gets their master's degree, but we only give 1%. They moved over in a 1% year, and the other person moved over in a 5% year, but they both have master's degrees and 4 years of experience. So because you shifted the year one raise was bigger than the other, it could improve your salary history, even though your years and your degrees are the same. The year you got your degree could impact your wage. And so we just keep building on that. So that means now they're not in the same cell anymore, even though they have the same education and the same years, because we don't give equal increments of raises every year. It all kind of starts to unravel, and that's the problem. But we always have equity issues where somebody comes in and says, well, I have the same degree and I've been here the same amount of time, but my paycheck's not the same. We have to go back and look at those and see if there's a reason that's true or there's a mistake that explains that's true. And if it's a mistake, we correct it. And if it's a reason, we explain it.
Well, it should stop compression, right? It should help with some of those compression issues that you see in those type of ranges. But again, the test will be to implement it and watch over time to see if it does what the intention. But yeah,
Is there anything you would change?
I don't know. I really have to see it in motion, and I need to know where your staff is placed right now, and that's why I'm curious where I'm more worried about our current staff as far as feeling that it's fair and equitable, because I know how it feels to be a longevity employee and be overlooked and not get nothing. That is just absolutely crazy to me, because you lose, a good tenure, you lose experience, you lose that craft, and so I don't want that to be in this.
And we will not have that cap out situation based on this placement. And then
That's good, that's all but it's I'll be curious to watch it and see how it moves through it.
Thank you. Mr. Verrill, if you can pull up the second attachment on this item. The support staff schedule matches the certified design and also the design schedule from Towson Union High School District, who is our toughest competitor. So what you see tonight addresses the increased minimum wage and the competition within the market. So we've always had an indexed placement schedule. The compression that occurs and the inflation that we are facing in the public and private sector has really torn apart all of our historic work on our placement schedules, our wage ranges, and our pay grades. So part of this, I'm going to talk about the schedule now, and the pay grades I'll talk about in the last section of my item this evening. So with the increased minimum wage, you'll notice in the top left-hand corner, pay grade 1, step 1 is $13.85, and that is minimum wage. So what we did is we indexed based on the current minimum wage. It has 3% between the pay grades and 5% between each step. The old placement schedule had 1.5% between the pay grades and 2% between steps, because that was typically what we were seeing on inflation is 2%, 2%, 2%. All of that stuff that we would love to make it fit on any particular cell and match it up. Oh, were the days like when we had to walk uphill in the snow and both ways and all that. So over the course of time, with increases to the minimum wage, our pay grades became bunched together. One of the things in developing this was to adjust the pay grades, and that work, as I said, will be in a different chart. One of our challenges in hiring classified staff was the posted ranges and the misconception that new employees would be hired at the top of their range based on their experience. So over about 3 years, everybody who we would call to give a salary to, at first it was everyone wanted $20. And then it was like, I want $22.50. This year it's been $25. Everybody wants $25. And we're like, okay. We go through and we explain, we honor our current staff, this is the position, this is where we're hiring, that type of thing. That doesn't really matter if you want $25 an hour. So we applied the same concept. So this placement schedule allows prospective employees to see the actual wage that would be offered, and again, most importantly, honors our current employees. We did the exact same exercise that we did with teachers. The new placement schedule also accomplishes the same things that the certified placement schedule does. It's friendly to prospective employees. It clearly outlines the criteria that we've always used to determine salary placement. And most importantly, it honors current employees with similar years of experience in education, which again dispels the rumor that if you leave and come back to the district, you get paid more. And so with this, we put a little footnote, and we understand we may have to do some additional wording. But however you add things up, you cannot get more than 5 points. So everyone starts in the first column. You can get to the 5th placement column through any combination of experience or years of service or specialized skill. And so if this makes sense, or I would welcome the same type of conversation that we just had with the certified schedule.
Questions? Yes.
I'm just going to be honest, I'm lost here.
Okay.
This one. So, for example, if I had an associate's degree and I had 7 years' experience, where am I falling on this?
So let's say you were at pay grade 1, just because it's the top chart and
Right.
easy to read. So you, which degree did you say you just had? Sorry.
Associates.
Okay, so then with the associates, you move over to column 2, and you have 7 years of experience.
Yeah.
You get 2 more points. So you would be in column 4.
Okay.
So I would call and offer you the job.
It's points added.
To step 1.
Right, okay.
5 points total means
Two.
the most you could add would be 4.
There it, so the second sheet is in the last item, and when we marry that up,
Okay.
it will make more sense.
Okay, that's where I was confused. 'Cause
Yes.
I'm like,
You're like, what grade, what this? So that is the thing, and then that keeps us from, they're calling and they are pay grade 1 and want $25 an hour. Well, they know that we're not going to offer that because this is our placement schedule.
okay,
So,
Thank
yeah, everybody starts at 1, and then those are added points on
Okay.
top of 1.
I was just confused with the going right, going across, or going down, and that threw me.
Yeah. As soon as you see the second one, tell me if it makes sense.
Pay
Okay.
grade is determined by the position,
Right.
and that was the old, job description, position, pay grade chart. So we had one of those, and every job had a grade, which
Right.
is, it was either a 3 or a 9 or a 15,
Yeah.
right?
It makes sense now that you said pay grade, because then it's like I remember that from previous years now. I just didn't when I first looked at this.
It's not years.
Yeah.
In my effort to break it apart, I made it more confusing, so I apologize. So these placement schedules are drafts, and they'll be coming back to the board for action in April. They're going to LEAP next week, which is a Littleton Employee Advisory Partnership. And they could have some additions or feedback based on that, which I will be sharing with you. We also have other salary schedules that I would like to apply this methodology to. It took quite a long time to do this, but we have 3 other schedules that I anticipate bringing back to you at that time, same type of thing.
I just have methodology question. So I'm trying to understand, I understand how to go across and what pay grade you're on. I get that. What I'm struggling is when you go across, it's anywhere from, 69 cents, $3 and I can't quite get the method to figuring out how the value was determined to move me, not pay grade, but move me across. How did you determine, so if I have a BS, I get 2 points, right? I'm on pay grade 1, let me make that simple, and it's $14.54. That other, to move me to a 3, it's worth, 69 cents or whatever. How do you figure that? How did you put a value on associates, BS, a master's?
President Reyes, actually, I combined our old method of placement with the Tolleson Union's schedule.
Okay,
This
so
is
it's a
how they did it.
combined.
It's combined.
Okay.
And our old percentage between steps was 2%. And so we would give 2 steps for an associate's degree, 4 steps for a bachelor's degree, and 6 for a master's. And so that would it's not quite 5%, but close to that. That's correct. Mhm. Okay. Jim, if we can go to Part B, there's an attachment called the Stipend and Addenda Schedule. We looked at a few of these on the teacher or the certified placement schedule. There are some minimal changes recommended on this, and some of the stipends listed, as I said, is on the placement schedule on the other piece. So we had some differentiated coaching stipends based on school start times, and now that we're moving from 3 to 2, we looked at that. The athletic coordinator that coaches or that manages all of the teams and all of the things, I know that Ms. Vandewater could attest, they work really hard for all of their money, but we increased them from $800 to $900 per season. That's only ever one person. The content or related service leads, those are $800 per quarter. That is unchanged. As I said, we went from 3 start times to 2, so we took the 2 highest stipends and associated those with the early and now late start schools. The after-school club per season, that's only ever at one school, and so that remained at $800. The guiding coalition member is an additional piece. We are working with the principals to develop the exact qualifications for this. It's going to be paid out of the classroom site fund, so it's not a hit to the M&O budget. It will be an opportunity for our experienced, certified veteran teachers to earn some additional money for serving on teams. And so the specifics will come back the next time, but I thought it was important to put this out here as we're teasing a little bit our teachers who have signed contracts, right? The high performance teaching assignment is $1,000. This again will have some stipulations, but it will most likely serve as the incentive. I'll use Ms. Soshnik as an example because I think many years ago she was made to go to science from a 4th grade classroom. And so that would be an example of a carrot for instead of you going, I'll go, but next year I'm quitting, right? The academic achievement goals, this is the achievement portion from the classroom site fund. It's always in the plan that you review and look at in May. Last year, the LEAP committee talked about aligning the achievement goals with the superintendent's goals, which you looked at in December for him, and we're working to align all of that with the school's IAPs and the achievement for the teachers. That actually went down from $3,800 to $3,600, and that $200 was moved over into their biweekly checks. We are battling a bit with this as some districts, because there are no stipulations on the classroom site fund, they put it all in the base. But we have always been concerned with achievement and felt it was important to honor the traditions that we've had here. Additional work days. That was $200, and it had been that way for a long time. It was at one time the average of the beginning teacher salary. So the new average is $245. Those additional days are 99% of the time paid out of title funds, so that also won't be an issue for our M&O budget. The contract signing incentive, you heard about that earlier. The teacher recruitment, we've had this in place for a long time, trying to compensate people for recruiting for us. Westside Teacher Impact of the Year is the same. Teacher on special assignment for their additional days worked is the same. The certified hourly rate of pay, we condensed 2 portions. There used to be 4 lines. One was, we called it sit and get hours, so you weren't actually teaching, but you were attending professional development or something like that. And it was pretty low, and we really don't get teachers to bite at that. Their time is more valuable. So we changed this to additional work outside of the contract at $26 an hour. If you're teaching adults and leading PD, that's still differentiated at $32 an hour. And then our ESSER rate is $52 an hour, which the board approved last year, and that is our summer school. We based that off of, we called it the governor's money last year. There's some more associated with that. And so that amount, once the ESSER fund is gone, will drop off the schedule unless we find some amazing pot of money to increase the normal hour to 52. Any questions that you have about this piece? Okay. The next piece is these incentive programs. There's one proposed addition, but I thought since we had new members for the board, on the board, that we would go over some of the pieces that we've used for incentives that the board has passed for employee groups in the past. So you heard me talk about on the stipend addenda schedule, the $3,600 for the 3 achievement goals. Those are under review by LEAP, and you will hear more about those specific things when you look at the classroom site fund plan. I don't remember how many years ago, but to show support for support staff and administrators who don't get that same opportunity to earn the $3,600 based on achievement, the board passed a one-time student achievement recognition, one time a year, for non-teaching staff. So our school letter grades are calculated to determine a GPA, just like in school. This year, ours was 3.0, and then the GPA is multiplied by 0.5% of each qualifying employee's base salary. That has been a check that has been distributed at the same time at the beginning of each school year for all employees, and it has become a popular thing, and so we appreciate that opportunity to do that. The proposed attendance incentive for bus drivers, this employee group requires a specialized license, and their absences cause an extreme hardship to the transportation department. So our coordinator, Thelma Whitbeck, worked with her department to collaboratively develop the criteria that you see here. So any driver who uses no more than 16 hours, there's some debate about this. So our drivers work a split shift. They have morning runs and afternoon runs, and in the middle of the day, it's not just lunch. They actually have a set amount of time off. So they can't miss any more than the equivalent of 2 full work days or 4 sets of routes per quarter, and they would be eligible to receive a $250 attendance incentive. So that equates to $1,000 a year. We would pay that at the semester at the end of each quarter, like we do teachers for their classroom overage or for their splits and fills. And we would propose that we start this in January. They've worked on it for quite some time. We'd like to pilot it and see how that works out, but you won't take action on this tonight. It'll come before you in April, but I'd love to hear any feedback that you have about this.
Is there questions on it?
I do have a question about that, just for clarification. So with regard to it being 16 hours of leave or less, let's see that they surpass that. Is it then like, I guess the question I'm asking is, if I am a bus driver and for whatever reason I've already reached that 16 hours, a child is sick or I'm not well, what is my incentive not to miss more hours? So I guess like my question is there a way in which that if they do, reach that cap, that there's still some type of incentive for them to continue to come? Because if I'm already reached 16 hours, then I may as well reach 24 or 48, what's the incentive?
Member Barnett, this is always a question that comes up. We used to do an attendance incentive for teachers in our classroom site fund plan. Basically, nothing keeps them except that holding people to the values of the district, but the quarter's basically 9 weeks, and so at the end of that time, they get a start over. So that's our thought.
And if they run out of leave, they don't get paid.
Yes.
Do you have a question, Amy?
It's not so much a question as it's just a comment that I know that we've heard, I've heard going to a lot of ASBA events and stuff that we're all struggling for bus drivers, and Dr. Freeman, we've talked about it here as well. So I'm glad that you guys are thinking of ways to possibly encourage our bus drivers to come to work if they can. Obviously, we don't want them to come if they can't, but If this incentivizes them, I'm all for it.
I not necessarily have that take. I've never heard, I've never seen in most organizations, not schools, where I get paid to come to work. So it's an interesting concept to me. I get why you have to do something, but I mean, really, an attendance incentive. Think about it. That's just I'm incentivizing you to be here every day, and I'm assuming when you can't, there's medical issues or other things. To me, this would need a second look. If there is attendance issues that are not, I'm going to use the word excused, that's a different conversation, right?
Yes,
To
it
give
is.
you money to be here, to me, I mean, why wouldn't we do this to the maintenance? Why wouldn't we do this to janitorial? Why wouldn't we do this to others if we're going to do it for bus drivers?
So, Madam President, we had this exact conversation in the executive team, and part of this is because if a bus driver doesn't come, I cannot assign Mrs. Garrison to go drive that
No,
bus.
I understand.
Any other position in the district, I can't. She always wants to mop floors or answer the phones in the
Do you
front.
know, if I'm a heavy mechanic and I need to work on a bus and the bus is broken down, can I find someone to fix the bus? Probably not readily and quickly.
No, but we could call a vendor and use other
Just
services.
saying, I understand. I have a hard time when it comes to paying people to be here, because most reasons are FMLA protected, right? You, sometimes children, you need to stay home. I get all that. But because there must be an issue with people missing, that's why this is here. That's what's in my head. This came before us because there's an issue with bus drivers not showing up, or we're too short of bus drivers, one or the other.
We are too short of bus drivers.
Okay.
That is number one. It's also an opportunity for people who schedule their time off when they can, like for a doctor's visit or something like that, at a different time, because we're looking at wage competition severely between Tolleson Union High School is going to give their drivers $3.95 an hour increase this year. And so this is an opportunity for our drivers to gain a little bit based on their management of their time. And and I totally understand, because I have heard you say the same thing when we had the attendance piece in for.
Yeah, I mean,
our
I'm not
teachers.
changing my position. To incentivize people to come to work, to me, is just mind-boggling. But thank you, I appreciate the understanding. So no more questions on that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rivera, we have the last slide. This might be the longest item I've ever had. So this is part two, Ms. Soshnik. So here are our family groups that we've always had. There are no new job descriptions on here, with the exception that you'll see next time. The library clerk, we're going to change that to a distribution clerk. Bring the job description before you, because there are several things that that position does with the increase in technology and different things. They don't just check in and out books, and they're actually not a certified librarian. And so we would like to make that clear in our job description for multiple reasons as we battle the legislature on some of those issues. So that will come before you. And then the health aide job description, it's not a change in title, but this position was created to hire paraprofessionals during the highly qualified days that did not pass their exam or have the appropriate hours yet. And so they were placed into this position to assist in our special education classrooms with non-instructional duties, and then moved into paraprofessionals. We utilized this position when we were no longer able to hire RNs or LPNs to staff our health offices, and we had always been able to do that until about 5 years ago. And then we had a onesie-twosie type of thing, and now it's becoming more. So the change in grade and the additional pieces to the job description will allow us to attract people in school that are working to become nurses, or CNAs, or EMTs even, and puts us a little bit more competitively. So I did a crosswalk, which probably will make no sense, because if I said, okay, a 22 went to a 16, is that like half or a quarter or this? Remember, we re-indexed our entire schedule, looked at three things: where our current employees are, where our market value competition is, and where we're having difficulty hiring. So for example, one of our administrative assistants, we did 5 rounds. We made 10 offers, months without the position filled because they wanted the magic $25 an hour. And we just filled that position last week. And so this addresses some of those things. It still honors where our employees are and allows, remember, we don't have a cap anymore, a max. This just is simply a placement schedule and a piece that goes along with sheet 1 from item A.
Questions on that? I don't have a question, I have a comment. If
Yes.
you told me I'm going from a grade 22 to a 15, we're
Yes.
having a conversation.
Yes, and we
So
will
I
have to
think
do
there's
some
going to need to
communication.
be a lot of communication, just because, to me, it feels bad, right? And so because you've been hammered that you're a grade 20, and that gets you to X. So I understand why, but I can see people leaving here because they just don't understand it. So, I think you're going to have a lot of calls, a lot of questions, because people will see, we've always tied the grades to position, right? And
Right.
when you're a grade 20, you've worked your way to grade 20, and now to tell me I'm a grade 16, it feels funny, right? But if you show me I'm making the same pay,
Yes.
and that will be the key. So I'm more concerned about how employees will see this versus what it really does.
Madam President, what if we put the base pay cell next to the 22, the old 22, and the base pay cell next to the 16? Yeah, so it's an apples to apples
Sure.
comparison for dollars.
Versus just showing me a grade? Yes, I think that's a
We
great idea.
checked that, but we have access to all the documents and know how
Yeah.
to use them, and maybe everybody else would.
Yeah, I think that would totally calm my fear. I'm not getting, pay taken away. I'm still a grade 16 and making X. I'm okay with that.
With no max anymore.
Yes, and that would be a seller, right? So, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Just put salaries and then probably won't have that many calls.
I appreciate all the feedback. If you have any other questions, of course, we'd love to hear them, and we will bring this back for you in April. And thank you for your time.
Thanks for hanging that cough drop in there, not swallowing it or choking. I was a little worried about you. All right. So I guess if we want to try and go back to item 10, I understand audit findings and CAFR's in our information now to look at. Is that correct? And so, Mr. French, do you have anything to add while we look at this?
Madam President, it is in your attachments now. I'd be happy to go through it again so you can walk through it with me. If not,
The pages you referenced, could we look at those?
sure,
Or
of
if you
course.
can give us a few minutes to look through it, that would be helpful.
So if we wanted, we can take a look at the,
Well, just hit the highlights. I don't think,
Yeah,
in
Jim,
all
if you wanna
fairness, you
open
don't
the
need to read
ACFR.
it to us, but.
so pages 19 through 28 is the management's discussion and analysis. That's going to be the highlight of this document. Pages 32 through 64 are financial statements, and beginning
Can
on
you
page
reference what document, is it, our documents say, yeah, we have
the ACFR.
22?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We have that one open.
Okay. So on pages 19 through 28, it's that section is called the MD&A. That's the narrative overview of the financial activities of the district for the fiscal year.
Okay, wait,
So let's look at page 19 first.
okay, I'm looking at 19, this is mine. It says
Okay,
governing board.
It's gonna be page 22
Oh,
on the
okay.
actual numbers.
Thank you. We got it, thanks. Our numerical system is different, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So this goes over financial highlights for the fiscal year. Overview of financial statements. Correct. I apologize. So that section of the ACFR is the MD&A. There's another section in this document, pages 32 through 64, which are the actual financial statements. And then beginning on page 127 is the statistical section, has demographic and economic information that allows you to compare us to other districts. Beginning on page 127, I'm not sure what sheet it is, but it's 127 of the report. President Reyes, this is the document that we attach with to the two organizations that we receive our financial reporting awards with. Yes. 127, yeah. Clear as mud, right? Who audits our audit? So we do a request for proposal for our audit firm. Heinfeld Meach does this audit, correct. This audit is also uploaded to the Auditor General's office as well as the Maricopa County School Superintendent's office. Of course, yeah. Yeah, Madam President, if it results in a significant deficiency, it means the process is broke down somewhere, or there are something of note that the auditors had decided that this was something that we needed to take action on. That list also goes to the Auditor General, and we're required to submit an action plan in situations like that that would remedy that significant deficiency.
where would I find where our budget is for the year?
Member Cisneros, that is not this document. Our budget is attached to ADE's website. It's also, I believe, on our website. This is a document that records expenditures, not budgeted expenditures. So we provide a budget, and then this goes and provides actual expenditures for the fiscal year, as well as assets that the district has and district holds, our debt position. So budget is more of where we think we're going to spend the money. This is where the money went at the end of the year.
You can
Does that
also look in Assembly, back in Assembly for when we've had budget conversations.
Member Cisneros will bring back a final revised budget in May as well.
I will ask the board to let me know when you're sufficiently have reviewed it. If you need more time, just let me know where you're at.
Luckily, I provided the biggest document first, so
Yeah,
the other
that
ones are going to be easy to look at. Jim, is there any chance we can go to the single audit reporting package? And I believe that is the Littleton ESD SA 22 for the governing board. And if we can go to page 9, and that's going to be, keep going, Jim. Right here, that's the last page in the packet of information. So if you take a look at this page, you'll see the auditor's report was unmodified. There were no significant deficiencies and no material weaknesses identified. There was no non-compliance materials noted. If we scroll down a little bit, you'll see that Title I was the fund that they audited, as well as that we as an auditee qualified as a low-risk auditee. So that's really the crux of this single audit. And Madam President, if we want to review the compliance questionnaire, we can. If not, that's the 170 questions that they asked us, that we had 5 areas that they noted as areas of correction. The one where the state average was 14, correct? Okay.
I move that the governing board accept the 2022 audits issued on December 27th, 2022 for fiscal year 2021-2022.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a first and a second. I'll have a motion to approve or disapprove the item, please.
We have to have roll call, don't we?
Oh, yeah. We do have to have a roll call, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so roll call on that?
Mrs. Reyes,
Yes.
Mrs. Sashanek,
Yes.
Mr. Saniceros,
Yes.
Mrs. Barnett.
Yes.
So roll call has been conducted. All right. 15 is where we left off. All right, this is a discussion item, and just looks like I'm giving the discussion. So basically, this is for the board to review. I believe each board member received a documentation, is that correct, Dr. Freeman, on the spending trend data for travel, for professional development?
There is, I'm sorry, Madam President, members of the board. So the work that the board secretary did with trying to establish an understanding of what the history of the board expenses has been was a 6-year look back, which is her tenure. And then there's an attachment on item 15 called Governance Team PD. And so if members open that, that's the summary. And And so essentially, we broke your professional development into in-state expenses and out-of-state expenses. So in-state events include delegate assembly, law pre-conference, law conference, county meetings, annual pre-conference, annual conference, bolts, all of those things that generally are associated with the School Boards Association, right? The out-of-state were the National School Boards Association expenses. So the average amount spent per year going back in the 6-year look back was $706 per member. That was 118. Then the average board member participation was 5.5 events in the 6-year look back per year. The annual budget was $4,000 per year, including all the members and staff. With an adjustment for the pandemic and inflation, we've adjusted that this year to $5,000. So part of the 6-year look back problem was it included a lot of COVID years, right?
Right.
So the budget amount that's been spent this year so far is $3,900 with a little over $1,000 left over in unexpended budgets. So for instance, some of the things that might occur this year still would be if people went to the Summer Leadership Institute in Flagstaff, I think is in June, would fall in this fiscal year. And so again, as Mr. French was saying when Member Cisneros brought it up, is that that's a budget amount. If it, for instance, was $5,005, it doesn't break the bank. It's a guideline for spending, right?
Right.
So then out of state, the 6-year look back, the average amount spent was $1,882 per member. That was $314. Again, the same thing, not a lot of travel because of COVID. So the $818 for budgeting purposes rounded to $2,000, right? And so that would be true for the last 6 years. Participation was 0.83, and that's because board members didn't really travel nationally for all but one of those years. So participation is rounded up to 1. So instead of 1882 and 0.83, it's one person, $2,000. That simplifies things for ease of conversation. So the out-of-state travel for board members, $2,000 a year. Adjustment for the pandemic is again a 25% increase to $2,500 per year this year. And so that would make the total 2,000 carried forward in 2,500, or a total in your out-of-state travel budget this year of $4,500. So that amount available per member went up from $333 to $417 for the adjustment for this year. Now what that number comes from is the pattern of the board only traveling every 5 or 6 years. So if you wanted to travel, let's say, every 3 years instead of 6, that would be twice as often, would be twice as much budget. So you can allocate however much you want to allocate to that. But so the scenario would be at the very bottom thing here. Before, you were at $2,000 on average. If it would have been $4,000, you could have gone to 2 meetings in 6 years instead of 1, right? The way that would work would be the accumulated budget would have been $24,000 with $10,000 spent to go to San Diego. Carry forward of 14 plus 4,000 this year is actually $667 per member. The budget then would have been $18,000 instead of $4,500. So however you budget your out-of-state depends on how often, how many people want to go. If you were going to do it every year for everybody, that would be 6 times as much. If you wanted to do every 3 years, it would be twice as much. So It's just simply a matter of how much you want to put toward that. And then I think to President Reyes's point, the board's always been pretty conservative. So if even doubling it's not a huge amount of money to change it from what we were saying before is 12,000 to 24,000 isn't going to mean you can't hire a teacher. But if you want to change it 24 to 48 or to 96, now you're talking about positions. So there wouldn't be a problem with increasing the allocation if people wanted to attend more often. But in the past, what the board had done is deferred a couple of years and then gone as a group, and then they can discuss things that they saw during the day, go to different breakout sessions, you know, get together at the end of the day over dinner or whatever and talk about what they learned, which happened quite a bit the last time people went. So it's completely up to you, but that's been the pattern, and the reason the budget is where it's at is just because of past practice of the board.
So I think also, you know, with COVID, some of the actual years is really just not practical to measure to, right? Because you couldn't travel, you couldn't do any of those things. So this conversation is really just discussion around, you know, what the budget should look like for in-state is not too expensive, right? A lot of those are put on and they're minimal cost. And so this is really, if you wanted to travel out of state, what were you thinking about? How many times to travel out of state, and what kind of budget were you thinking about as a board? Would we want to allocate in our, you know, kind of as our guideline? So that's what this discussion is about. Thoughts? So we know there was a meeting, I think it was Florida, is that right, Marcus? Florida, and so getting to Florida from here is obviously expensive just because of distance, if nothing else. Doesn't mean you shouldn't go, if that's something you, but keep in mind, if we all went to Florida and we all stayed in a hotel and we all paid the conference, that's probably a little bit of significant money. And then if we wanted to do that 3 times during the year, that is, not that we can, it's just money to consider. Where does it come from? Because what we take out of this comes from somewhere. So I just ask that we be conservative and yet continue our education. That's critical as well, right? To continue to know what's out there, what trends, and so with it, I'm open, whatever the board thinks is discussion, we should have it now so we can kind of put some pencil to paper and get our budget straightened out so people will know what we have to spend in terms of what conferences they want to pick to go. You're always welcome to go to anything, but once the money is spent, actually, then you would be, we would ask that you would look at paying for it out of your pocket if it's that important, once our budget's set.
Madam President, I would also add that most of these conferences have like an early bird registration rate.
Good point.
And then if you're late, you have a late registration fee in addition. There's a lot of times a conference hotel rate that if you get in early, you get a better rate than if you decide to go late. Same thing for airfare. So, you know, in keeping with that conservative approach, we've always planned well in advance. I think, you know, we were approving a trip this summer for some staff to present, and we'll probably bring one next month for sometime in October, so that if we plan way out in front, we can travel way more efficiently than if it's on short notice. So, but part of that is if you establish budgets like we do in the spring for next year, everybody knows either you're traveling twice as often or half as many people are going more often, or however you want to do it.
So what's thoughts? I mean, really, if you're going to travel anywhere out of state, you're talking probably, I mean, I could be wrong, minimum $3,000, $4,000 just to get an airfare, a hotel, and a conference.
Yeah, Florida's more expensive than San Diego.
Yeah, I'm not really, I'm just trying to say, if you wanted to travel out of state, what are you looking at in general? And it's, at least I remember when we traveled to San Diego, that alone was, what, $3,500, and that's been a long time ago. So your out-of-state travel is just, with cost of airfare, is just crazy. So what's your thoughts? Any thoughts at all? Marcus?
So some of my thoughts is, first of all, thank you. It's nice to see the trends of what the board has typically spent. I know as me and Rachel as a new board member, it's nice to know our budget now, and it's nice to have a discussion. I know this is all one budget, as all of us sharing one budget. This is just an idea I had. If each member had their own budget, like if each member had a certain money that was allocated.
That's what I was thinking. If we want 20,000 or whatever we said, then we would each take a piece of that, right?
Yeah.
And then you could choose what's important to you, and then we would do that. That was my thought as well, is just set a dollar limit, and then each of us divide that up by the number of board members. Is that?
Yeah, that was my initial thoughts. Whatever amount that we all thought was not going to take away from any.
Well, let's just throw out 5,000, because traveling out of state, 5,000 is really not too unrealistic. So if we did 5,000, I'll look to the financer, Dr. Freeman. What does that do to hiring a staff member, or what does that look like?
Well, I mean, right now, what we would estimate, probably $3,000 to $4,000 a trip, right? And right now, you go once every 5 or 6 years, so.
But what if we wanted to go once a year?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, what we've been doing, saying, I think it was 417 or something, I don't have it open in front of me, but let's just say it was 500 a year for out-of-state travel. To get to 3,000, it would take 6 years, right?
Right.
So if you wanted to go, everybody wanted to go every year, essentially you're setting aside the amount of, so round numbers, you're at 500 now, okay, just for ease of conversation. If you wanted to get to 3,500, to get to Florida, that's 7 times as much. So right now you have 500 times 5 is 2,500, right, a year. If you wanted all to go, you're going to do, instead of 500 times 5, you're going to do 3,500 times 5. So you have your calculator going there, right?
Yep.
It's 17,500 instead of 2,500. Did I do that right?
Yes, sir.
So, so that's an increase of 15,000 a year.
Right. No, I understand that. Yes, sir. What I'm asking is, what does it, is asking for, I'm just going to say 20,000 just because of simple math. Does that a year, right? That's each
Right.
giving us a piece. What does that do to the budget in terms of, is it taking away from something that's, like a teacher position?
Well,
or
we
a
just
staff?
saw the starting salary, if you say round numbers is 60,000, it would be like a quarter of a teacher. It's not breaking the bank.
I'm asking, is it doable
Yeah.
or something like that? Amy?
Okay, so I went to San Diego this past year as the whole board, or almost the whole board went, and I have done a number of in-state PD by myself. And I just kind of want to say, I like this idea of us having our own budget and we get to pick where we go, but I think there is something to be said about as a board going and being able to discuss with each other. One of the things that I feel like I lose a lot of is when I go to these PDs or conferences by myself, like I have all these ideas and I want to talk to someone from Littleton and how can we do this? And there's no one there. And so I don't want us to lose that idea of it doesn't have to be all 5 of us or like a group of us going and being able to say, these are Littleton's goals, these are the breakout sessions that might help us get to that goal and having that discussion. And so I don't want to lose that.
Yeah, I think one of the most beneficial ones I went is where most of us went. And after the sessions, I think we had dinner, I don't remember what, but we got back together and said, well, yeah, this could work. And it was a lot of good dialogue that I would not have been able to have if I hadn't had other people there, right? So I do agree with that. But that takes the majority of all the budget. One trip would take our budget. So I'm just asking, you know, it's not an easy task to figure out what to do, right? Because one trip, and we'd all have to agree on like, what trip would that be? So that gets difficult too, right? What would it be? Maybe it's important to me, or maybe I've been there 5 times and I'm like, now I've heard it all. As to where you would like, oh my gosh, I want to go there. So that gets to be the difficult part in trying to just find one to go together. We'd probably be better off to try to see if we could find one in state to go, right? If that's possible. Sometimes they're not as good as some of those other law conferences or conversations. So first, what's our budget? What do we want to do? 20,000 is only, what is that, 5,000 apiece? No, it's actually even less than that. What is that, 3?
It's 4,000, there's 5 of us.
Oh, that's right, okay, yeah.
But then if we want Dr. Freeman to go or someone else, then that would.
Well, that's their budget. That's his budget. This is just what the 5 of us would split. Well, right?
That's the Costco Visa card.
Okay.
I think, you know, some things that make sense to me as a person who goes to a lot of these by profession is, you know, high frequency attendance doesn't mean you're always getting new and fresh content. And
Right.
You're looking at breakout sessions from other board members. But board seats are either 2-year or 4-year terms. So you might want to say that, you know, let's just say your 4-year term lands in the middle of that 6-year spread, and so you do 1 term on the board and you never get to travel. So you might want to say at least it should be every 4 years, so everybody who does a term on the board gets to go at least once to a national, right? Or if you have 2-year terms, maybe you want to say once every 2 years. I don't know that every year is always that beneficial and that your takeaways are going to really bring back a improved governance. So I think some of it is also being purposeful. The other is, you know, we showed you what the participation, I mean, this is actually the governing board's goal for itself, number 2, which is participation in these things. And so probably Ms. Sausnick has been the best at attending. But you might also want to look more seriously at the less expensive in-state options for your own professional governance growth.
In my defense, I've only gone out of the state once in the 10 years I've been on the board, because you guys went to, and you guys went to San Diego the summer right after I was elected, and the seats were already taken.
Yeah.
So I think. And we had planned for us to go to Chicago, but then COVID hit,
Right.
and that's
So we
where.
don't really travel.
But we have to decide what we want to do. And if you want to think about it and give feedback, and we can do that too. It doesn't have to be tonight, it's just something we have to decide before we can decide to travel. We have to have a budget to know where we're taking it from.
I did want to add, I know thinking of the NSBA annual conference, but they also have other different types of ones. So maybe, you know, we set a $20,000 budget per year, and maybe we decide as a board 1 year we go to the annual conference, and the next year we go to the CUBE conference together, and then
Yeah, I think
kind of
once we
divided
get
up
our
different
budget,
years or every other year.
it'll dictate where we're going,
Yeah.
right? Once you say it's kind of like when you travel on vacation, you're like, well, I'd love to go there, but can't afford it. It's kind of the same concept. So are we thinking then $4,000, which is a $20,000 budget?
Okay, so my next question is this $4,000? I'm not against it. I think it works out well, but just so we're clear, that includes my in-state and out-of-state.
Well, that's what we're setting the budget for, so we're really talking about out, but it would include total cost to attend whatever learning development you want.
Now, my next question with this, and would this include like registration to ASBA's delegate assembly?
I wouldn't think so.
I'm getting technical here, I
Yeah,
apologize.
I think you can get quite in the weeds, like
Yeah.
the expensive in-state stuff is not, I
Really.
mean, basically what we showed you is it was 5,000 in-state and 5,000 out-of-state. And so, but 5,000 in-state, I mean, you go to the things that people can work into their calendar, have time or interest for. 5,000 out-of-state is a major undertaking in travel. So, so you did it less often. So if you said you're currently at $500 a person, if you go to 1,000, that means you could maybe every 3 years go to something national. If you went to 2,000, you probably could every other year go to something national. I think leaving the state allotment as one big group, because not everybody needs to go to new board member orientation, right? Or bolts. I mean, when you're new, and when you're not, you're not. So, and you would want anybody who's new to the board to go to that.
Right.
But you don't all want to go to it because there's one new member. Right. So.
I mean, I just don't go to those anymore because. I think a trip a year is, Amy, you have a face.
I have a face. I feel like 5,000, I mean, I love 4,000. I think it would help us grow, and I think it could be beneficial to the district. I'm very concerned that that seems like a lot of money to go on this trip every year, and is the benefit of us, are we truly bringing that much back to the district? I would want to be sure that we're doing that, because that seems like a lot to be doing every year.
Well, we're jumping from 500 to.
So
Yeah, it's a lot.
800%, and we're not giving that to anybody else.
and that's, you know, I, you know, Dr. Freeman, you bring up a good point. Like, that is 20,000. While it will not get us a brand new teacher, it is still money, and it's still a significant amount, and it's still money that we're taking somewhere from the budget.
So what's your proposal?
I would be comfortable with saying every other year, honestly. 2,000.
Okay.
That's what my
Your gut says is good.
gut says is good now. I love conferences and I love professional development, so I'm certainly not going to turn it down if you let me, but I feel like every other year for going national is better.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Amy's feedback. I just think as a new board member, I know it's like getting on and then wanting to like learn about all this stuff and kind of hopping into it and then not knowing what our budget was. So I know I was the one who initially brought this conversation to us. But it is good to know. I didn't know that we rounded it up, the budget every year, and then build it on to go out of state. I didn't know we did that. So that's really good to know. I do agree a little with Amy. I don't mind going every other year if that means that we get to save 1,000 or between all of us 5,000 every year on the board budget.
And I kind of piggyback off of what's already been said. I definitely want to be conservative, but then also, you know, I know the personal and professional development is so important, and it's even a good opportunity for us to have team, you know, building exercises so we can establish a healthy rapport with one another. But then that being said, you know, this is all about our students and making sure that they are able to have all that they need. And so I don't think that in good conscience it would be fair to, you know, jump such a high level. So I agree with Amy. I think every 2 years would be appropriate and allow us to meet that objective and have that balance. So I agree.
Oh, so just to confirm, we're just stating, or not stating, but
We're just having
discussion, but then changing our out-of-state, but then keeping our in-state?
Yeah, I think for the
Okay.
most part,
Yeah.
anything we go in-state doesn't really
Okay.
cost, other than registration.
Yeah, so, I mean, what we had in the data is you were at your 5,000 in-state, 2,500 out-of-state. And 5,000, probably is pretty close. We've actually had more participation this year, like at the Bolts and at the Winter Annual Conference. Some of it is because we have some new people on the board. I mean, I think there's some things you go and you go and you go again and you don't feel like you need to go. And then the other is, I think, some pent-up need to get out and get professional development for everybody being locked in. And so I don't know if you would sustain the same level, but like I said, adding, going over 5,000 and being at 5,249 is an adjustment that we can make. And for those of you who are new, who weren't here the beginning of the year, one of the standard motions the board makes in every year at the beginning of the year is to ratify vouchers and to adjust spending within categories as long as the total spending doesn't go over, which means you don't have to perfectly guess everything in the budget down to the penny. So that's not a problem. And kind of, I think, to Mr. Sinceros' question about the difference between the CAFR, AFR, and the budget, the expenditure always has to come in under budget. And then there's a carry forward, which was one of President Reyes's other questions. So the AFR and the CAFR really are what got spent. The budget is always a little more than that because we can't ever go over budget by law. So it really is a good indication of the AFR really is a good indication of the actual work that's happening, right? So would travel expense of the board go under administrative costs?
Travel expense to the board has their own, it's a 2300 function code, so it's Office of the Superintendent.
Auditor General's going to put it into that category when it gets reported. I think, I mean, I don't think it's an out of line adjustment. And the other thing is, once again, it's the budget, it's the plan for spending, the actual spending can be different. You might want to increase the in-state a little bit more if people are going to keep going to everything. I mean, I always do like seeing when there's 3 or 4 or 5 of you there sitting together and having some conversation. I think it's more beneficial.
Well, I'm just thinking if we go to Flagstaff, that alone, we're going to stay at Little America. That, for all of us to attend, that's not.
More expensive because it includes travel,
Right.
but it's in-state travel.
Right, I know, but I think that was the distinguished piece we were trying to ask, because I haven't been that, and again, when I look over the agenda, whoever the speaker is and what they're presenting, I base mine, but that alone is probably, that's not cheap.
No, it's not cheap, and I would suggest either, I mean, we've had 1 or 2 people go, but if you all want to go together, would be to set aside some time to have a conversation, post an agenda.
Oh, yeah, we would do all that. I'm just saying, I'm talking money, right?
Yeah, it's not, right now, everybody going to Flagstaff for the Summer Leadership Institute's not in your budget because it hasn't been your past practice.
Well, we've had COVID for 2 years. I don't know we had a past practice.
If you, for instance, said that you want to all go, you may want to all go in a future year to that, I mean, I think you would want to add $1,000 at least to your in-state budget.
That's what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah. So you might want to do that for fiscal '24 is change the 5,000 to 6,000 and change the 2,500 to 10,000, which is 2,000 apiece instead of 500, and have that be the fiscal '24 jumping off point. And then I think what you do is you come back and reevaluate
And
it.
see where we've been, what we
Yeah.
think we've missed out. All right, well, I think there's been enough discussion, unless there's other discussion, to talk about kind of what the board's thoughts are at least, and kind of where we head in terms of dollars.
Right, and there'll be, you'll have more discussion of the 14 goals for the district and your own governance goals when you do your April board retreat. So this will kind of tie into that. And I thought I saw in my email a survey invitation Did everybody get one of those? Okay, yeah. All right, so
All right,
everybody
so you're
has that
next.
information.
You're going to give us a legislative update.
Yeah, Madam President, members of the board, I'll try to be brief with this because the legislature is a moving target, as people are aware. The schedule had 2 weeks remaining to hear bills in committees, and normally that would mean that the action is going to start wrapping up, but committee agendas aren't really packed. This week's agenda started out pretty light. We're expecting some changes. I'm not sure what happened in House Ed today, because we've been working on all the things that we've been presenting to you tonight. But what's happened is actually things are moving slowly as opposed to rapidly. And we may see committee agendas start getting loaded up next week, since those meetings for bills are supposed to already be being heard from opposite chambers. So they've extended the deadline to hear bills from opposite chambers. So this week is not the last week to hear bills in committees. So they're pushing back their deadlines, and Senate's still passing some of their own Senate bills, so they can't be transferred over to the House yet unless they are. So, that's kind of a problem. The governor has already, I think, vetoed 16 bills or sent 16 bills back. So I think they may have underestimated her resolve a little bit. They've tested it and found out that she means business. So that's changed the complexion a little bit. There's some things happening in Senate Ed tomorrow. I listed a couple of those. So one's the Pledge of Allegiance. And used to be students were required to say the pledge, and then there was some issue in federal courts about free speech and coercing a pledge. So at this, in this bill, what they are saying is the student has to be excused by their parent. I'm not sure if that, went to the Supreme Court, if that would hold up. There is a famous case during the Vietnam era where students were wearing black armbands, and the Supreme Court said you don't lose your constitutional rights at the schoolhouse door. So I don't know if that were to pass, what all the implications would be. There's a bill called School Choice Failing Schools Notice, and there is right now some movement between the State Board of Ed and ADE and who's going to do what. And some of that is because we had a Democratic SPI last term. We have a Republican SPI this term, and their disposition towards letter grades and takeovers and those kind of things is different. So it creates another different DNF letter notification. And then there was a floor amendment for requiring the ADE to develop school choice notification letters, requiring school districts and boards and charters to submit evidence of compliance of notification. And so really getting into the weeds. We in the past sent letters home. I think, Amy, you may have gotten one. I don't know if we're all school-wide Title I schools, so everything is subject to federal notification as well as state. There's another one on school districts' organizational meetings deadline, and there is currently in statute a time frame for you to convene your original meeting where you choose your officers. So it's got to be done by a certain date, which is why we always do it at the first meeting in January. I don't know why they change it to any date in January, unless maybe people are still on winter break all the way to January 15th. I mean, usually the deadlines are the middle of the month or the end of the month historically. So I don't really know the rationale behind that. The other one is this teacher training parental notification. And there is an acronym, I think, called DEI, which is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And what we suspect is the people who don't like diversity, equity, and inclusion training want to know when you're doing it. So it requires the board to adopt a policy to provide parents with information in an electronic format as part of the parent involvement policy to include procedures that require the district to basically disclose any training for teachers or administrators and to give parents access to the training materials. So that would be extremely onerous and probably, like, a lot of those materials we pay for on a per participant price. Some of the vendors we work with probably wouldn't want their stuff given out for free. It's proprietary. So I don't know that they're really considering, you know, at least from the vendor point of view, what the implications for proprietary information would be. House Bill 2460 is suspension requirements. So there was a bill that went through a session or two ago saying you couldn't suspend any little kids. And then, of course, the kids came back from being home with COVID, and especially the little kids were tearing up classrooms, probably as far as teacher workman's comp claims go. Our little kids create more claims than our big kids. And so, so there was a pushback to add short-term suspensions, like 1 or 2 days, for the class to regroup and the administration to work with parents to see if kids needed other therapy or medication or those kind of things. And so that's been moving, but I saw Children's Action Alliance put out a Facebook piece last night saying that suspension discriminates and it doesn't help. You know, we disagree with that. We think that the other kids and the teachers do need a little bit of break from kids who are extremely disruptive, and an opportunity for parent meetings to be held, for the school and the family to work together to see if there's simply behavioral socialization or other kind of developmental needs the kids may have. And sometimes nobody even realizes that till they get to school and they're sharing space with 25 other little people instead of, I see a lot of people when they're out, you know, if the kid starts acting up, somebody hands them their cell phone and they start playing with it, which of course they can't do in kindergarten. There's 2533 classroom instruction posting requirements. It mandates that schools post a free electronic copy on the website of each course of study being offered, a list of all the learning materials being used, including the source of supplemental materials, and each lesson plan being used or implemented. This course would be hugely onerous for teachers in addition to the planning they're already doing. And so the people I've talked to, the jury's out on whether this is, once again, to discover anything that could be DEI, or the other is all of the people who are going to use vouchers to homeschool want to take our teachers' lesson plans and materials off of our website so they don't have to do their own planning. They can just bogart our staff's work and then take the voucher and work from home with our teachers' lesson plans. So it's free homeschool curriculum guidance. Or maybe it's both. Lastly, there's a big bill, which is 2060, and it's one of those strike everything amendments where the kitchen sink and the bathroom and the living room and everything is in there. And so that's Pingarelli. She's the chair of the committee. She's also one of the people who voted no on the AEL. She's, I think she was a Peoria board member from that Northwest Valley, very conservative area. But there's website things in there, deleting charters subject to the USFR, allowing districts to do their own dyslexia training without somebody telling you how to do it, narrowing the requirement for K-3 reading, changing the administration of the kindergarten entry evaluation. That would actually probably be helpful. Recognizing the ADE requirement to develop parent rights handbook for both districts and charter parents, requiring within 5 days of enrollment, a pupil can request previous records. That's an issue sometimes getting those from another school district, but we actually have to have their state record released to enroll them, so that's an ongoing thing. I'm not sure. There's a bunch of other things in there about dyslexia and parent right handbook, and so that's going to be a tough one to watch when they start putting all kinds of different things into one big strike everything bill. And there's things moving down there, some that are supported both by Democrats and by Republicans that we would find objectionable. So it's a strange year in the legislature. We're going to go down, I think, the first week of April and meet with some representative groups with the Tri-Advocates group that the West Valley School Districts joined to see, what kind of bridges we might be able to build. And I'm usually down there every week, not necessarily with an ask, but talking to different members and trying to provide information on different things to continue to build rapport and relationships, because there's so many new people down there and new staff. So some point we may want board members to weigh in on some of those, and if you're not already signed up and request to speak or something like that, we can certainly help members do that. I don't know if that's not enough information for you or more than you wanted to hear. Obviously the session's going to go on for a while, so a lot of these things can change.
The information, it's always mind-boggling, so it's all you can say to some of that stuff. At this point, if there's no other conversation, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn at 8:47.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.